all, welcome back to Daz's Unite YouTube channel. I've been away for quite some time, mostly learning Daz Studio some more so I can do some more tutorials and also doing client work. Probably most of you don't know, one of the things I do for a living is create renders for other designers for their cover design work. So I will create things in fantasy, mystery, sci-fi, horror, that kind of thing. And I have a little web store at authorsassembler.com. So that's where I upload most of my stuff. To give you a sense of what that looks like, you can see some of those here. So essentially, I have created some custom characters. Some are characters you might even recognize. For example, this is Albany, the figure on Daz, in the Daz Studio shop. And some are custom faces and bodies and things like that. That's part of what I do. I also do cover design. So what I wanted to show you today was something that I've been working on for a few months now, which is basically becoming more efficient in all aspects of what I do. And a huge chunk of that was trying to get a handle on how I render, the workflow I use, the process, the time it takes me to put things together. So I did all of those, I kind of overhauled all of those at once in the last couple of months. And I finally figured out the best solution for my process and what I need to do to become more efficient. And so I thought I would take some time today to show you how I set all of this up in case it might help you work more efficiently and faster. And so I'm going to go over several different things, and hopefully something will be of use to you in this process. What I'm going to start with right now is to just show you the filing system I set up. What I was having trouble with initially when I first got a brand new PC that was specifically meant for rendering, I mean, that's its sole purpose is just to render new stock images. And I was getting confused between trying to move files between my PC and my Mac, because I used to be on a Mac and doing all of my rendering on a Mac, and it was extremely frustrating because I ended up realizing after I bought this very expensive MacBook Pro that I couldn't render iRay renders on a MacBook. I would have to use a CPU as opposed to an NVIDIA card, which is what iRay actually has to have in order to work well and fast. So I kind of screwed myself at that point. I ended up finally putting some cash together to get a PC. I ended up with a smoking fast machine, and I also ended up with a big fat mess with all of my files, moving them back and forth, because I really prefer to edit my files in Photoshop on my MacBook. So what I ended up doing is creating a kind of workflow, and I actually numbered it, as you can see. This is my render queue, and everything's sitting in this main folder for all of my render stuff. And this is my render queue, and I put everything in here so that I can just have one place to dump everything that I'm currently working on. This is basically my to-do list. So I have them all by, what their character's name is, because basically once I create a custom character, I give it a name so I don't get confused. And if I just named it like character 1, character 2, that would get old really fast. And I like naming things. That's kind of my shtick. I have a name for pretty much everyone, figure-wise. I also do environments and objects and all kinds of stuff. But in this case, I'm focusing on characters because they're the most time-consuming, the most complicated of all the things that I render. So as you can see, I've got some, like for example, here I've got Sindel as one of my characters. And here she is. And I've just rendered her yesterday, I think it was. And I put her in a new outfit. I used to have her in a different outfit with different lighting, different makeup, different colored bow. And I decided to pull her out of my archives and re-render her with a brand new outfit because I just got the Legend outfit in the Daz Studio store and I was anxious to give it a try. I also do all the same images that I do elsewhere as, oh, that's not the right file, without hair. I haven't actually done that one without hair. So here she is again, slightly tilted to the other direction, and she's facing the camera and without hair, because a lot of the customers I work for, the designers who buy my work, want renders without hair so that they can either digitally paint hair in, or they have other hair assets that they want to apply for whatever their project needs. So I've got that render queue, and then once I'm finished, I actually stopped using this folder, so I don't really have anything in there. Then I send it over to my Google Drive, and I got a bunch of space on that, cleared off a bunch of space on it. It was a monstrous mess. So I wasted a bunch of time getting rid of everything on my Google Drive in order to have more space for this. So this is basically a holding queue so that I can move my files from one machine to the other. I find I'm far more efficient editing in Photoshop on my MacBook. That's why I move back and forth between the two. So as you can see, that's number 3. I'm actually going to have to change my numbering because I got rid of this one. And on my other computer, I have 2 more folders that go through the queue, and one of them is simply a notification to me to do some post work on it, those images in Photoshop. And then the other one is if I need to do some digital painting, like say overpainting hair to make it look like it's more flowy or whatnot, I will dump it into a Procreate folder and I will actually do some digital painting inside a different program on my iPad. And that one works great for painting. Particularly, it's actually just a iPad-only app that works beautifully for painting. So that folder will then, once I finish with those 2 folders, then I will dump it back onto my Google Drive, and then I will save that finalized image after I upload it to wherever I need to upload it for sale. I will then archive it in my main archive system folder on my PC. I'll also save a copy on my MacBook just as a backup. So that's kind of the file system I came up with finally, and I'm really loving how clear and easy it is to follow. It took me a while to set it up and think about, okay, what should go where and at what point in the process. So that was a little confusing at first. Now that I've got it all set up, I can kind of roll along with these and spend more of my time building new characters in Daz rather than trying to figure out a filing system. Another thing that I'm really happy I did was I created a sort of to-do list when it comes to things I want to remember every time I sit down to do another render. And it's things like my favorite render settings are listed there, my favorite cameras. It's sort of like if I'm taking an older image that I've done before and I'm trying to upgrade it to my new system, I can kind of look and see what I have listed on my to-do list, and I'll just go through this step by step to speed up that process and not forget anything specific. The main thing I use that list for right now, because I'll tell you why in a second, is my lighting system. I finally settled on a specific lighting sort of asset. It's the Boss Pro light system. I don't know if that's the exact title, but I'll have a link to it in the description of this video below. But I really found that Boss Pro system helped me speed up my process exponentially compared to any other one that I've been using so far. So I have a list of the lights that I turn on and off depending on the type of render I want to do, whether I want dramatic lighting or softer lighting. So for my particular character images that I create for sale, I really want to have more even lighting that isn't too dramatic, and that will allow designers who buy the image to kind of add their own highlights and shadows and glows around the body as needed. So it really is for their benefit to do it that way. There's also some specific character adjustments that I always make once I get a new figure into the scene, and I will discuss those in just a bit. But the other thing that I decided to do was set up a template file. And there may be a way to actually create a real template. I don't actually know for sure. I haven't really searched around exhaustively to figure that out. But what I ended up doing was creating a template folder. And I have an object template, which is sort of a square shape. And then I have a character full-length template. So just to give you a sense of what that looks like, I'll open that. And I also have a backup copy and a master template folder in case I screw something up. One of the ways that you can avoid screwing something up, and I'm pretty sure you can do this on a Mac too. I haven't ever had a need to, so I haven't Googled how to do it. But what I ended up doing was right-clicking on the file. Once I created it and got everything just the way I wanted it, I right-clicked on it, went to Properties, and made it a read-only file. That way, I can't ever accidentally save over it. And that is very helpful. Okay, so here's the file that we're looking at. And what I ended up doing is, obviously, because there's no character in this scene, I can't actually set up anything about that character as far as I know. Please correct me if I'm wrong, because I would love to do that. Until I get a character in there, I can basically set up the lighting system, the render settings, the cameras that I want in the scene. I also add in a light plane, a really easy thing to kind of set just beneath the character in case I want to do D-Force type clothing. To give you an idea, what I ended up doing was setting these lights up and turning on and off the ones that I want. This is the Boss Pro system, Boss lights, I guess. And there's a primary set, and then there's also a secondary set. And also there is a best camera angle, which I don't know if you can see it right now with nothing in the scene, probably not. So I set those up, and then I also make some choices once I get the character in the scene, depending on what kind of outfit they're wearing, whether I want a rim light over their hair or head. So that's I leave that in my to-do list of making a choice on those. I always create two different cameras. One is a fix cam, which is what I call the one that I spin around the character and fix various issues with the character before I will render it. And then, of course, the render cam itself, which is where I always basically position it exactly where I want it and just let it sit there. And then, of course, the light plane is also in there. And then my render settings, just as to give you an idea, I always render at 6000 by 900 or 6:9 aspect ratio. And then I will change the folder later on. I always have the headlamp set to never. And let's see, what else do I do? Photoreal, of course. I know that these settings are just wildly different by the artist who's creating the render. We all do these things differently. But at the moment, I am testing this setup right here. So max time at 0, max samples at 1500. The rendering quality is on at 100, and I do a converge ratio of 99.1%. So that's what I'm checking out right now, and I'm really loving the results. And my NVIDIA GPU is really able to handle those settings quite well, as opposed to on my Mac, which I would never be able to put the rendering quality up to 100. It would probably explode my machine. I just have the Firefly filter enabled, and I don't have denoiser on. I haven't really needed it, so I haven't been using it. And then I think I've been keeping the burn highlights and crush blacks to the standard defaults, but occasionally I'll bump those up to like 0.35 or something. I still haven't decided if I want to have those fiddled with or just leave them as the base. Then I also will do scene only lately, whereas before, when I was rendering on a Mac, I really couldn't do just scene only. I would have too much noise on the skin when I would render characters, and it was extremely frustrating and time consuming. So I always had to use an HDRI to get more even lighting into the scene, and that helped with some of that noise on the skin. And of course, because I'm doing character only on a transparent background, I will keep the draw ground off. So that's really it. That's my template file. And because I set this up, it saves me a good deal of time initially. I just will either import a character into the scene that I've already created, or I will start creating a brand new character. Yeah, let's actually merge a character in from my previous collection. I'll go into my archive and find another character image of Sindel. So I have these all set up by topic and type of character. In this case, I know she's a archer, and here she is. So I don't remember which scene I had before. So before, I was using alternate skin settings on her, and I remember thinking I had put a little bit more, or too much shine in her skin than I really wanted initially. And so I've been meaning to come back to her and redo some images of her. Now here's that, let's see where we got. There's that red thing I was talking about. That's the best camera angle marker. So usually what I end up doing is turning this one off while I'm trying to get things situated. And I initially put her in a very basic outfit. And as I mentioned before, I previously purchased the Legend outfit and have been wanting to redo her outfit to something else. I'm going to move her around to the best camera angle. And actually, I'm on the wrong camera. I want to set up my render camera. Let's see, where do I want that? Okay, that should be good. Now I need to move her around a bit more. I don't really like this angle for her, with that right in her face. Can't remember how I had her before. Must have been like this, actually. Maybe it was right in her face. I guess it was. All right, move her down just a bit. Because her outfit doesn't need D-force, I'm going to actually just remove that light plane from the image. Okay. Okay, now I've got some clothes on this girl. And I have set up a general scene here. Obviously, I'm going to actually spin around her and get different angles depending on what I'm looking to do with her. Now, some of the newer things that I've found that I want to do with every figure that I have a render for is, well, it's basically about 4 different things. And I will show you what those are. They're under parameters. I think all of them. And I will select the character, and I will start by looking up mouth realism. Oops. And I'll set that up to 100. Then I'll do rim refine. That's refining the edge of their eye. And I usually put that around, what was it, 70, I think? And then on cornea bulge, now I think some of these items will be part of a set of morphs. They might even be like Genesis 8 female morphs or something like that. I'm pretty sure I have the Gen 8 morphs for both male and female, so I suspect those settings are actually from those morph sets. Don't quote me on that. I can't really remember. I've just always had them, and those are one of the first morph sets that I bought. So for cornea bulge, I actually end up setting this more around 60%. I don't want it to go too high. I remember reading ages ago about if you set it too high, it doesn't look real or it doesn't look good. I can't remember, but this is a nice happy medium. So I'm going to now do the final item, which I learned from Daniel Wright, another amazing Daz artist. And he was telling us recently in the Dazies group how to make hair look more soft and less like hard ridges to it. And what you would do is you would select you would select the hair. And then you would go to the flyout menu up top and go to Edit, Geometry, Convert to Sub D. So we're subdividing the surfaces basically. And then we go over to Mesh Resolution. And under Render Sub D, you would put 2. Now Daniel recommended not going above 2 unless you had I think an HD hair. High definition, I guess. So anyway, I just set it at 2 like he recommended. And then he also mentioned to put it at soft corners and edges as opposed to hard, sharp edges and corners. So that's what I end up with as my basic things that I always do for every figure. Now, on the rest of what I do, I think that this is pretty much the main things that I've been doing lately to speed up my process. Again, it boils down to having the lighting and the cameras all set up ahead of time in a template file, and then also having that to-do list that I can always refer back to if I've forgotten, what I normally would do for each one. And then once I've finished rendering and done the post work in Photoshop, I'll probably end up doing a video on my post-work process in Photoshop, just to give you an idea of what that looks like, if that would be helpful. Let me know in the comments section below. And thank you for watching. I hope this information was useful. Feel free to ask any questions that you have in the description or in the comments below, and also check the links in the description for the different assets that I've used in this video. Thanks.